Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hi, my name is Vivian Acquah, and I'm the inclusion strategist, also CQ facilitator, and also the host of Let's Humanize the Workplace. What I do in normal day life is support leaders and managers with effective collaboration and communication. So if you want to learn more about that, please reach out to me via LinkedIn or via other platforms, but know that you can look me up via the LinkedIn platform. And today is a topic that came to life during a TruthWorks collaboration. If you want to know more about TruthWorks, look at my LinkedIn profile. You can see that I'm one of the verified experts as well. Some of my colleagues here on this call are also verified experts for TruthWorks. And this was a conversation that came to life because something happened in the news, which was, for me, it's a no-brainer to talk about these topics, but I realized that it's not only happening in the football space as well. So before I dive in and share more about the topic, I want to also introduce my guest speakers. And bear with me because there are many guest speakers on this call. So the first one that I want to share is Toby, and Toby Newman has been in L&D for 25 years with roles across the learning spectrum, and he now consults and coaches, mentors individuals and teams on all aspects of learning. Then there is Jeroen van Luijk, and Jeroen has the founder of Success that is willing to improve performance of fathers, modernize their ownership of work, and support their cultural attractiveness for parents by focusing on the priority of the new dads. And then there's Calinawan, sorry. Karla is the founder of Foundree, helping companies better support working parents through parental leave and the return of work. She is a former tech leader, ICF certified coach, and a Columbia MBA, and she's passionate about helping parents and workplaces thrive. Then there is Sam Clark, who is a leadership talent and organizational development consultant for over 15 years of experience helping organizations build better leaders, stronger teams, and healthier cultures as well, having worked across sectors including media, infrastructure, fintech, and more recently health technology as well. So there are many experts on this call, but the reason why we are all here had to do with this thought that I had, and I was talking to Karla during a co-working session from TruthWorks, during a co-working session. And what came to mind was Doku being penalized. Jeremy Doku, a Ghanaian football player, plays for Belgium. And he was being penalized by a French journalist about him leaving so that he can witness the birth of his first child and then come back. And I was thinking, if this is happening in the football space, then can you imagine how many workplaces are failing parents when it comes to the birth, or when it comes to pregnancy, or when it comes to the parental leave? When you look at my personal story, I witnessed maternal wall bias, dealing with pregnancy discrimination. So this topic really comes to heart of mine, but having this conversation with mothers, with parents, with dads as well was also very good. So I want to bring up the first question, and the first question that I have, and I will start with Karla. What is your definition of humanizing the workplace?
That's a great question. And I think it comes down to the recognition that employees have lives outside of their job title, outside of their function, and that this has an impact. And whether that impact is positive or negative is determined by what kind of workplace culture there is. And that would be my definition.
Thank you. Thank you. We often forget that there are parents working, and apparently now more parents are also speaking up. So great that you are advocating for that as well. And Jeroen, what's
Yeah,
your
I thought about it about humanizing the workplace. I think we have still some actions to take, but my belief is that people can learn and grow as a
Mhm.
person. So as a person means for me professionally and personally, but creating an environment where they want to come and learn and grow. I think that would be my definition of humanizing the workplace.
Yeah, that's a real good ingredient. So learning and growing, creating that environment and creating that, adding that to the foundation of collaboration. Toby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one because you should have, there shouldn't be a definition of humanizing the workplace because we all should be. We're all human. I think to go off what Jeroen was saying, creating a psychologically safe environment so that you can be your true self or whatever they refer to it. But for me, it's about coming with the full package. It's just almost as simple as that, is to say that you are a husband, a mother, a father, a workaholic, an alcoholic, all the different things that make you.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you bring to the workplace, and it shouldn't be poo-pooed upon or shouldn't be put down to say, oh, that's just your non-work bit, let's focus on targets. It needs to be the whole conversation, especially around teams and with leaders.
Yeah, so to summarize, you want everybody to bring their whole self or their full package so that people can utilize that within work, because they cannot deactivate parts of themselves just because they are working.
Yeah, I mean, how can you motivate somebody if you don't know what motivates them outside of work? It could be that, they want more time with their kids. That would be a motivation rather than money. But if you didn't ask them that, you wouldn't know that.
True. And Sam, what about you?
Yeah, I'm pleased to follow on from actually everybody else, because mine's, I guess, a bit of an addition to all the great points that have been made so far. I think to Toby's point, it's absolutely about the individual, and it's not just about being a parent. It's about the hierarchy of things that are important in our employees' lives, right? That could be, being a parent, your children. It could be your pet. It could be your parents, your families, your friends, your religion, and it's taking the time to understand those things. And I get a little bit uncomfortable with businesses that talk a lot about, we encourage people to bring themselves to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I think humanizing the workplace actually is about how much the business prioritizes time spent getting to know their people. I reflect on COVID, right? Lots about COVID was unpleasant, but I have some very positive memories coming from that. And I remember how much time we spent on calls, doing activities, getting to know each other, suddenly in each other's homes, and getting to know each other on a whole new level, and the benefit that brought, and people you'd worked with for years, seeing their kids on screen and watching them develop and grow. So I think, to go back to the question, if we're really harmonizing the workplace, I think there's a pull and a push. Yes, the employee's got to be willing to bring that. And our businesses, I think, have got to do more to provide opportunities and to encourage managers, leaders, teams to get to know each other on that deeper level, and provide opportunities for people to share that information about themselves.
I agree. And also, when you get to know the different team members on a different level that goes beyond the job or that goes beyond the function, you can know what makes them cry or what makes them laugh or whatever trigger they might have, and you can also know how you can meet each other in the middle. So I appreciate that. What is your favorite song that energizes you? And I'll start with Sam.
Well, I mean, like many people, that's a hard question to answer, I'm sure. And in the end, I went for it's relevant to the discussion. So it's a football song, and I may alienate a large chunk of your audience now, but I am an Arsenal fan. And Arsenal have adopted a song called "The Angel" by a guy called Lewis Dunsfield. And if you haven't heard of that, please do look it up. Now, whether you're an Arsenal fan or not, what I love about this song and why it gives me so much energy is because there's a story behind it of a guy who's a local lad who wrote this song. It wasn't contrived. It wasn't planned. It got a lot of social media exposure. The fan groups got behind it, and now it is the song that the players come out to. So it's a really energizing song for me as a fan, but also my 6-year-old and my now 4-year-old, as of Monday, sing this song at the top of their voices when it comes on in the car. And my wife is a West Ham fan. And as much as she dislikes Arsenal, when the kids sing that song, she can't help but smile and enjoy it. So it uplifts me on many different avenues.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your song as well. And Jeroen, what about you?
Yeah, I thought about it as well, and related to the topic, I chose a song, or maybe less of text in the song, but a number in the hit list for Armin van Buuren, which is called Father and Son. So that relates much to me in terms of it's not necessarily the energy that you would know of him as a DJ, but more of the mode to reflect. And I think it gives me the ability to either reflect or to become or get into the moment when you are with your children. So it gives me different ways to enjoy it. But definitely there are other moments where I turn on some motivational music and pump up the energy when I go to sports, for example. But this would be my one that I would mention here.
Thank you for sharing. What about you, Toby?
Well, actually, I just wanted to come very quickly onto one of the points previous about the humanizing, just that came to mind, is that we need to also, we can't be forcing managers and companies to bring their, kind of like, tell me everything about you.
True.
I'm, born and bred Londoner, lived over in the Netherlands in Eindhoven for 12 odd years. And one of the biggest striking things that I found between the Dutch and the English is that when you're traditionally working in England, you get to know everything about your colleagues. I mean, I knew like almost all their dirty secrets and all that kind of stuff. It's a very much part of that kind of the working culture. Whereas I found with the Dutch, again, it's not, it's not a mark against like Jeroen or like Dutch people, but there's a very clear barrier between work and I get to know you and I get to understand your friends and family, but there's a line. And 5 o'clock comes and it's a whole different ball game. But so you need there's a great book about the culture map, which kind of understands stereotypes and stuff. Not saying stereotypes are a great thing, but you've got to start somewhere. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that in terms of it's important that we know, but there are you need to understand culture. In terms of the songs, now I could obviously go topical and go 3 Lions. I can, Sam, sorry, apologies for you being an Arsenal fan, you can't help it. But Palace fan, so I could go Glad all over. But let's
keep the football fanatics.
I'm going to go kind of slightly left field because I think it all depends on the mood you're in and all that stuff. But one song that's always come back, it's not really an energizing song, but it's something that is kind of really stuck with me, is Sun Cream by, I think it's the class of 99, We Should All Wear Sun Cream. Now, if you've never heard it before, it's a talking song. It talks about, like you should respect your parents, you should, but it's a fascinating song because every bit of it for me now goes yeah. Whereas back when I heard it in 99, I was like kind of kind of like lose your hair, okay, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, as a kind of slightly right wing kind of energizing song, for me it's up there.
Okay, thank you. And also regarding culture map, I know that a lot of people like culture map, but there is also a different variation which I am using, is called cultural intelligence, where David Livermore also has written a leadership toolkit about how to lead better, how to lead global teams better. And it's similar to culture map, but I wanted to offer that as an extra tool so that leaders can look into that as well. Karla.
I have my energizing song might be a problematic answer because Puff Daddy's in the music video. Gosh, but it's Notorious B.I.G.'s "Hypnotize." I mean, it's just like such a fun song. The iconic like scene from 10 Things I Hate About You just like gives me energy. It has nothing to do with this topic or football or working parents or leadership development, but it's a super fun song. So that's my pick.
It's what energizes you, right? It's what energizes you, and the other time you can pick, you can pick a ballad, and another time you can pick a pop song. And for this occasion, I did look into a song, and that is Superwoman. Also because of I want to support many parents or many mothers who are supporting, but also the aunts. Sometimes we don't look at those who aren't parents but are doing a lot of parenting tasks as well. So I want to also shout out to the aunts and the uncles with this call as well. Okay, let's dive into the questions for today, because Doku, what happened to Doku? I'm really curious about your thoughts when it comes to this. So Sam and Karla, where do you think that the backlash comes from? And are we dealing with outdated cultural norms, workplace pressure, or a mix of both? Karla.
Happy to start. I think it's a mix of both, right? When you look at the cultural norms, there was a study recently that came out this year from King's College that when you present remote work as a benefit to parents, then those parent employees get rated lower on impact on a number of scores. But when it's presented as a policy for everyone, then that kind of diminished rating disappears. So there's definitely some bias around parents, whether it's unconscious or conscious. So there's definitely norms. And there is intense kind of work pressure now with all of the disruption that's coming, all the reorganization. We've seen that the kind of employee engagement scores are at the lowest level. So there's definitely that. But I think a third component to it is that I think we like to think of workplaces as apolitical kind of bubbles that where politics just doesn't. And I think there's just a lot more vocalization of these topics that tend to kind of hit kind of working parents around flexible work, around return to office mandates, around parental leave. And we have politicians talking about this topic and just a general kind of geopolitical discourse. And I think that that's also kind of impacting what's happening in the workplaces as well.
Definitely. Sam, what's your take on this?
Yeah, Karla, you reminded me something. I remember when I was in like the earliest stages of my career, and smokers used to get cigarette breaks. Non-smokers used to get resentful of going like, well, how come they get to have so many more breaks than I do? And then the concept of like fresh air breaks was kind of introduced, and it ties back nicely to the topic of conversation, right, about bringing humanizing the workforce. Is that what are the things that I require flexibility for is different to the individual, and so I think that's something that's important to remember when it's not parents, it's whatever, you could be a caregiver or something. So lots of people need flexibility for different reasons. On the topic of the backlash, now I've calmed down to it myself. And I'm able to look a bit more objectively. I'm kind of quite proud of the backlash. I mean, it was incredible how many, and Vivian, we shared a few of these between us, how many subsequent videos appeared of footballers discussing the topic and condemning it. And I don't think that would have happened, as recently as maybe 5 years ago. So the fact that there was such wide condemnation of the topic, I think is quite impressive in terms of how far we've come. I think obviously there's still some way to go, that there is still almost like pub humor around the dad's role in childbirth. And whilst we're not doing any of the pushing or in any of the pain, I think I can quite confidently say that my wife would say I was very important in the room. And I wonder if the person who created the backlash if she has had children, had very easy births, because when they're not easy, having a birth partner there, whoever that may be, is a critical role in managing the room, looking after the individual, putting them at ease, solving problems as they come up. And I ended up playing a much more active role in both our children and actually one in between that we lost via an ectopic pregnancy, where my presence was critical and made a big impact on how our experience of that situation went. So, you know, if you are one of those fortunate people who arrives in hospital and leaves 2 hours later with a perfect baby and an easy birth, great, good on you. Maybe the support is less required. But again, we go back to this humanizing, right? What does the individual need? What's the confidence of the person who's giving birth, the complications around that? And so again, I think it just needs some sensitivity to the needs of an individual, and being flexible to that in the workplace is the critical thing. And if we now got footballers speaking out about it who have failed to speak out so passionately about some of the other issues that have been raised through this World Cup, then at least we're making progress in one area whilst being tragically inept in others.
I agree, and I want to summarize, because I've seen also, and I think it was more in the US, I don't know within Europe, but I've seen the US, some companies, prominent companies, taking a less flexibility. I think it was Deloitte that stripped the parental leave away, and basically saying that we only want parents or women who want to work full time, and stripped it away from certain areas. And then Sam is saying the backlash is good because it puts a spotlight on what needs to be fixed and what needs to be highlighted. And maybe there are companies out there, or those HR individuals, those who are responsible for policies, can look into what are you doing to support parents? Because we here in Europe, it's going to be a game changer for you to keep on talent, and for your talent to not to call in sick or not to deal with a burnout. And then again, you also have to look into people are getting older everywhere, and some people are caregivers, right? And they are supporting their parents, or they are supporting their loved ones. What are you offering when it comes to flexibility as well? I want to say a shout out to Marie. Marie is saying, what a panel. So thank you, Marie, for joining this conversation as well.
Very kind.
And bringing up to the following question. And this one is for Jeroen and Toby. The Doku story centers around the father. How do expectations around fathers, partners differ around from those from around mothers? And why does this gap still exist? Can I start with you, Toby?
Yeah, okay. So I think for me, there's a couple of different levels to this. Like if you look at the Doku situation, one of the things that my mind harps back to was, I think it was an NBA coach in the playoffs. I don't think it was this year. I think it was a previous year, where very similar situation. One of their star players left the game for the birth of their child, and the reporter asked the coach, like, why did he leave? And it was a very simple response. It's like, do you have kids? If not, then it's the most important thing. And it just shut down the conversations. It's like, no, I couldn't even imagine not letting him go. So, yeah, so, you know, different sports, different how you're brought up as well, differ. The other level is the governmental. Like for me, moving to the Netherlands, and then we had our child in the Netherlands. When we had our child, I only got 2 days of parental, I can't remember what the technical term is for the father bit of the leave, but I only got 2 days off, which was crazy for me, because I'm like, and just like Sam said, you know, I went down to the hospital, wasn't an easy birth, absolutely needed. Not sure how much use I was, but I was there, and I wanted to support my wife and everything else that was there. And then for me, one of the interesting was that a week after I was Penny, our daughter, was born, my manager sent me on to Berkeley, to San Francisco for a week leadership retreat that I had to support.
Wow.
And oh yeah, that was, I mean, if I'm being honest, I did have a choice, and well, depending on how much of a choice, it's one of those, oh, you've got a choice. Whether you have promotions and stuff in the future is depending on which decision you go with. But I had a very difficult conversation, and my wife struggled a lot. She had a very hard few months or so of rearing and stuff. So the good thing is now the technical bit, at least in Europe, is improving. So they're getting a lot better legal leave, so companies have to follow, whereas other countries like the US and stuff just don't have that. So you've got that backing. But I think it's an important level to say, as a company, if you choose, like you said, Vivian, if you choose to say, we're going to have people that don't have parental leave and are going to be work, that's completely your right. We are in a capitalist society. You're free to choose whoever you want. But I hope and I do believe that kind of situation, if they go down that route, they'll only get a certain type of person, and their customers and everything else will leave. Sam mentioned COVID and work from home policy. Similar kind of thing. Companies said, some companies, no, everybody back to work. And then all of a sudden you see people go, right, fine. I'm going to move. I'm going to go to another company that supports my thing. So I think you'll find that people will naturally move towards the ability to be flexible, whether it's work from home, whether it's be parental leave, whatever it is.
Yeah, Jeroen.
Yeah, what shall I add to that? Well, one of the things Sam and Toby both mentioned is that you don't know how a delivery will go. So it's easy to always talk afterwards, but I think you should prepare upfront on what am I facing, and you don't know how it's gonna develop. And I can share from experience that you can be surprised. Yeah, from looking on what companies might see or do, I think we, especially in the Netherlands, we see a huge pull on mothers to get back into the office, maybe ASAP, but at least pretend that nothing has changed. And I think that's a big pull over the past 10, 20 years, where if I quite frankly see what we've done in the field of fathers, that's hardly anything to get them into either push or pull, get them into the care domain. And I think that's an old narrative where you see companies trying to deal with it and stay attractive, where Deloitte maybe has chosen, we want to be attractive in a different way. I see and believe that if you become and illustrate your values more towards a human aspect, I think the struggle to get the right people and a broad and variety of customers is easier to obtain than if you follow a narrow path. And especially when you work global, when you work across any culture, fatherhood is, I think, one of those things that cuts across any country, culture, and health doesn't. You don't know how health is going to be. So I think you should prepare as a company as well, not sticking to the old narrative, but looking at what do my people need to perform in the office, what they might need at home. And yes, agree, Toby, that in the Netherlands we do share our personal stories, but they definitely have limits. But I do also believe that from a managerial perspective, there are different ways to ask questions on how people want to accommodate work and private in their life. And 84% of men becomes a father. So we can always and we can still go with the fact that it's kind of a surprise, or maybe with 84% out of all the men you have in your company, you should prepare something more standard and say, hey, if it kicks in, then this is how we deal with it. And that makes it clear for in expectations for fathers, but it also makes it clear for managers who, quite frankly, I've seen based on my HR experience, also adopted in different ways, and sometimes struggle to have the right or most neutral or not conversation with the father or the soon-to-be father.
I
So
wanna summarize. I wanna summarize what
yeah,
both of you said and go to the next question. So what I hear is flexibility, right? Because on the other hand, what many organizations don't realize yet is in the past there was this luxury of, let's say, of looking and finding the unicorn. Now the unicorns need to be created within the company because there is a talent shortage all over Europe at the moment right now. And I think it's also something happening in the US. People are getting older. So that means that you're leaning heavily on the current workforce. You're leaning heavily on the workforce that is upcoming, like my son, who's now at the moment 12, where they want flexibility. They want transparency. They want to know what you're treating, how you're treating the work-life balance, whether they are a caregiver, whether they are a parent, whatever role they take outside of the workplace, they want to know if they can mix it with the work so that they don't have to leave for a different company. Having that and having that said, we need to change the old narrative because we need to write a new narrative that supports caregiving, whether it's for your parent, for your aunt, your uncle, or for your child, because some children are prenatal. Some parents do need some extra support once the child is there. Maybe there is a special needs child where things are changing the dynamics as well. So be mindful of that as well. So thank you, Toby and Jeroen. Going back to Katie.
So can I just add one thing into that as well?
One short thing.
Okay, so I think, going back to Jeroen's point about kind of leaders and business, is that one of the issues is that there is so much pressure on leaders to deliver and to deliver with less. So not being able to grow their team is a pressure as well. So yes, we should encourage people to be more understanding about parental needs and stuff, but we also need to kind of keep an eye on the fact that because there is so much pressure on leaders, that their reaction to somebody leaving, whether it be a mother, a father, a caregiver, whoever it is, their reaction is not, at least I hope, not a, oh my God, it's more a case of, what are you doing to me because all my pressures and stuff. So it's a reaction to the situation that the company puts leaders in, rather than being an a-hole, so to speak.
Yeah, they're in the battlefield.
I get the situation and I understand that, but different people respond different ways. And some of the people that respond are having an old way of thinking, right? Assuming that the moment that a woman gets pregnant, in my case, I was written off. And I keep hearing that story where there is a narrative about how women are being perceived, not only men, and also how men are being perceived when it comes to not going for a certain promotion because they want to have a healthy family balance as well. Men are also being penalized. So thank you for that. I want to go over to Karla and Toby. What does a psychological safe environment actually look like for a working parent who needs to raise a family need with their manager? I want to start with you, Karla.
Yeah, so let's just take an example of let's say you have a top performer who is a mother, and she just kind of is coming back from maternity leave, from parental leave. This top performer probably has a ton of pressure that she's already putting on herself. And here in the Netherlands, typically parental leave is 4 to 6 months. And then the baby goes to daycare. their first few weeks of daycare, they're usually getting sick and they're bringing that sickness home. They're having to stay home. And so suddenly now you have this top performer feeling a lot of guilt for having been away for some months, wanting to perform, and then suddenly has to ask in their first few weeks back, I need to take a day off because I need to take care of my baby who's now sick and can't go to daycare. Like that is a high threshold already from a psychological safety to ask their managers. And so I think in terms of like what is a psychological safe environment, that an environment that allows those kinds of conversations to happen and know that you're not going to get penalized for it. Know that, you know, asking for flexibility, asking for accommodations, you know, if that has no impact in your outcomes, in kind of the work output that you're creating, that you know, that there's not going to be any kind of penalty and that you're not going to be perceived. Although, you know, there is, like you said, Vivian, like you had experienced the maternal wall. People do have these biases. So it really is not just the manager, the colleagues, it's a whole kind of team level set of kind of dynamics and culture to encourage those kinds of conversations to surface and to be able to ask for that, to have that kind of safety to be able to ask for those things.
I agree. Toby.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, to Karla, such great points. I mean, my own experience of this was when our little one went to school. So in the Netherlands, once you hit your 4th birthday, doesn't matter when it is, you're off to school. And you know, she was potty trained and she was kind of as much as we can, but especially in the first year, she had a lot of accidents, almost daily. Nothing, you know, it was just she got nervous or she gets so excited that she doesn't want to go to the toilet, whatever it is. So it ended up that my wife would have to go, but my wife went almost daily to the school to change her, to take spare clothes and all that, because obviously the school can't do that side of thing. So, you know, I feel that stress of having not just the sickness and all that kind of stuff, but all the other stresses that come with a kid. For me, I want to kind of, with the psychological safety piece, I want to go back to like a learning and development, like the definition for me of what psychological safety is. For me, it is as simple as rewarded vulnerability. The rewarded vulnerability is as simple as it gets to say that if you are vulnerable with me, then I am much more likely to be vulnerable with you. So in this example, we talk about parenthood, that the vulnerability is leaders not dictating to say, what's your situation and having to do work around people, is to be vulnerable themselves and talk about experiences in their back in when they were growing up or when they had kids that went ill and stuff. And yes, it might have been a different environment where if they're a different country or there was a generation ago, but the leaders need to be almost volunteering that vulnerability to say, almost put a hand on your shoulder and go, yeah, I remember when I had my first kid and we had this problem and that problem, and then you're more likely, not saying it will happen, but you're more likely then to then be honest with your leaders and with your colleagues to say, yeah, I'm feeling nervous because my little one's been sick and I don't want to give that sickness to you, and whether it be measles, and then you've got the whole psychological thing of vaccinations and all that. So there's so many things at play. But for me, it just comes down to the fact of how vulnerable you can be in terms of not just disclosing your own worries, but then allowing other people, and that rewarding bit is not like a payment to say well done, more just an encouragement.
I want to also summarize or add something to it, right? There are some countries where job sharing is very normal, where two people are doing a managerial job or leadership job, and they split so that the workload is less. And then on the other hand, we should not be penalized for being a parent. We should not be penalized for being a caregiver. We can add value. Most of all, as a parent, I've learned so much more from being a parent, or maybe being an auntie, or maybe helping somebody else's child, than without. And it's adding that value. It's adding something into my toolkit where people can be of benefit for the team. People can help out and create some understanding. And on the other hand, have that conversation about psychological safety. What does it look like? How does it look like within this team? Look into your policies and hopefully provide training when it comes to working parents. A lot of the new parents are figuring things out whilst there are policies in place or while there are rules and regulations in place to support them in this new way of working or way of, living your life. The child is dictating the agenda. The child is literally dictating the agenda, and it's dictating sleep. It's dictating the amount of hours that people are working. So help them out into finding what are the rules, what are the regulations, and how you are supporting working parents. Maybe there are ERG groups for working parents, or maybe there are teams for working parents. So don't create the wheel on your own, but find out and ask questions ahead of time, because when you are in the stage of taking care of your newborn or your new child or your foster child, you will have less time and energy to look into that. So help them out, leaders, help them out, HR. Jeroen and Sam, how can leaders make discussions about work-life boundaries normal, an ongoing item or topic as part of the team culture, instead of it being a awkward one-off request? I want to start with Jeroen.
Yeah, my first thought would be timely conversations, because well, Jeremy Doku went home, but I don't think for anybody in the squad that would come as a surprise. That he has prepared and discussed with the team, with the professionals. Hey, when the moment is there, if it allows, based on certain circumstances, I don't know which one, I will go home. And I think that it illustrates that, because the squad was all supportive, that illustrates one aspect is to have timely conversations, because yeah, you don't know how delivery or the first weeks will go, but you do know that it's coming your way. So how do you prepare? And with an open and an honest conversation, I think you can definitely share what might be your ambition. Maybe your ambition in the first week, maybe your ambition after a couple of months, but how you look at that. And from a company perspective, I think where Toby, you also had the choice to go on your training course to Berkeley. Yeah, the second part of the sentence, I think, should be swallowed by management. Like, yeah, but hey, you also need to think about your promotion. I think management or colleagues should also be supportive. Say not short term, like, hey, or what are we losing, but what are we able to gain midterm, or maybe slightly longer term, because if we need more people from a company perspective in leadership positions, we're always demanding life skills and experience in life, because that will bring more empathy, more connection, more weighing different opinions, and I think that's what every company is looking for. And I think this is an opportunity to build that. But yeah, it comes with timely conversations. They need to be open, and you need to follow through. That you don't punish, or you don't connect consequences to it, which might be experienced as a negative effect. Because I think that's one of the aspects that many fathers will decide. Yeah, but what about my promotion that was promised? And I always say never promise a promotion, but a promotion that was kind of incentivized, like, hey, if you deliver this, or you obtain your targets, then the promotion is on the horizon, and that's what people then feel as a loss. And I think things should definitely not be seen as a loss, but as what's able there to gain. and the dynamics in the relationship between an employer and an employee should be perceived more as dynamic rather than static. Things can change, circumstances can change. That happens on the employer side as well.
Agree. And Sam?
Yeah, so I think I've got some quite strong views on this, and bear with me because I'm going to go into goals and strategies here. But I think that fundamentally we need to look at the way in which we're designing those, and we need to come to the understanding that the phrase work-life balance is an unhelpful one. Having something in balance is actually a very delicate thing. It doesn't take a lot for something to be imbalanced. And this sounds like a little bit of a softy L&D phrase, but I prefer the one of like work-life harmony. We need to understand that in order for people to perform in the workplace, there needs to be harmony with outside of work life, because there is so much of a blend between the boundaries these days, and people are often sign up to jobs willing to do that. They know that in order to do their best, they need to be flexible, work hard when needed and when priorities are there, or there's a problem or a challenge, and lots of people are willing to do that as long as there's some yin to the yang of what they put in. So there's some sessions I run, for example. I've got one called Better by Design, which is all about helping people look differently at how we can be productive in the workplace and improve performance by looking at people's skill sets and then looking at areas they're enthusiastic about and delegating work and creating goals around those kind of passion areas and areas that I'm good at, and aligning those against goals. So the things that I'm working on are projects that I'm really energized and excited about wherever possible. And then if we've got those goals set and everybody's really clear, then flexibility is possible, because then we can say, okay, you know what you've got to go and do. How you do this, when you do this is entirely up to you. You make your work and your life work around what you need to achieve. And if they're goals that I've collaborated on and I've inputted into the business strategy that I'm then delivering against, I'm going to be a lot more willing and able to be flexible and think more carefully about how I apply my discretionary effort in order to better support the team, the business, and my own individual performance. So I think, in summary, we really need to start having those discussions about our boundaries very early on in that goal setting and strategy period, to make sure that it's included in that conversation rather than assume that we can fit those things in around them.
Yeah. What I got from the conversation is having a timely conversation when somebody is a parent, whether it's a leader or the new parent. One of them has to tango and create that conversation and start it up beforehand, so that it's not an afterthought. And on the other hand, it also got me thinking, like, if a manager, in this case, what Toby shared around his manager sending him to Toby, to the United States, then what signal are you giving out for those who are aspiring to become new parents, right? Because it says something, and if I was a man, or if I was becoming a mom again and I would go through this, it would make me think about, is this the right company for me to work here or not? So people are thinking about that. And then on the other hand, I really like what you shared, Sam, about work-life harmony, because yes, we need to look into a way where we can harmonize the elements instead of creating that balance, and also think about having that conversation. How often are you, those who are watching or listening to this conversation, how often are you talking about what does it mean to be a working parent in the workplace, or what does it mean to be a caregiver in the workplace, and how are team members looking at that, and how can you be supported, what needs to be done for you to create the work. And on the other hand, also offer the flexibility, because we have 8 hours in a day, and if somebody can do what you think they need to do within the 8 hours, within 6 hours, and they need the 2 hours to do whatever it is that whatever it is that can support them in creating that harmony. Let that be and have that open and honest conversation about that. I know we are about to end. I have more questions, but I need to bring it to the final question. So I'm going to do a round robin. What is your wish for 2030 for humanizing the workplace and when it comes to working parents? And I'll start with you, Toby.
Okay, I mean, there's a few different things. I think for me, the one thing that I'd like to add to the conversation is, I think someone has already mentioned it, is the benefits of having parents in the workforce. So, I mean, for me personally, the negotiation skills, put it that way, of negotiating with a youngster, you have a whole different outlook on whether I couldn't teach that in my negotiation training for love nor money, to how much you get from that, and the mindset change. I mean, before I had Penny, I was very much in that kind of work, and now I'm like completely opposite. But that's a benefit to me, to my family, but to the workplace as well, to have that better, maybe a bit more emotionally unguarded and a bit more open to these things. So there's a lot more benefits that we can take out of growing up with or growing with a kid, as well as being a parent and being a different mindset and stuff. So for me, that would be the one big kind of takeout.
Thank you. Sam?
I'm going to just go a bit more broader than just the parenting issue. My wish is that there are a lot of leaders at the moment who are putting a lot of effort into the return to work. And when you ask them why people need to return to office, when you ask them why, they don't really seem to have a why. And if they do, it's often around, how do I know they're working? Well, I know plenty of people who used to shirk work when we were all in the office. So I think, for leaders listening to this, for people who are working with leaders in business, for people who are looking at new ways of doing things and solving some of these problems, a catch-all for me and a wish that I have is that leaders start asking themselves more often. What I think their role is more about providing the right opportunities for their people to do great work. Like, how do I enable that to happen in the workplace? That is your job as a leader. Step away more, listen more, ask more questions, and create the right environment for people to do their best work. So that's the question. How do I help create the conditions for people to do their great work? I'm sure I borrowed that from a book somewhere along the lines, but I can't remember who I'm quoting. But that's it. If we start focusing more on that, then I think productivity will improve, performance will improve, and retention will improve. I wholeheartedly believe that.
I want to swing it over to Karla.
Yeah, I love that, going more broadly as well. And I think there is something to be said around kind of, confusing visibility would impact. I mean, 2030 is only 4 years from now, but I would really love for this mentality of how we can do more with less. That's so pervasive, especially with AI, and I think creates a lot of the pressure that does kind of bring in like all these return to office mandates, and creates a lot of the noise, and especially for working parents that have a lot of mental load, the second shift after work, eliminating some of that. It's a full second shift, right? It's like an estimated 35 hours of work that you're doing for caregiving duties. So I guess, so that's my wish, is that this kind of grinding hustle, kind of more with less, not confusing visibility would impact, could help humanize the workforce.
Thank you.
Wow, Karla for president. Love that.
Jeroen.
Yeah, thanks. What can I add? I think 2013, if we made progress on better understanding who we have in the workforce
Mm-hmm.
and what thrives them, I think management will then be able better to enable those people to rise to any occasion in business, but also in life. And I think especially also tying back to the reason why we started this conversation, if you're in good shape and in good condition at home and in your personal life, yeah, you perform many times better at work. I mean, we don't need to discuss that. That's proven. So I think if we go that line of thinking, like if your mental state is fine and no guilt, no doubt, no uncertainty about the health, then people are definitely willing to go the extra mile for the job, because becoming a parent is not a no to the job. It's just a change of priorities which need to rebalance or reharmonize. And then I think if we achieve that in 2013, that we have a bigger eye for what does this person want in life, I think we made good progress.
Yeah. I want to say to those who are watching or listening to this conversation, think about next year and think about all the goals that you want to achieve. If you are able to, will you be able to achieve those goals when people walk away from the workplace? Or will you be able to achieve those goals when you have courageous conversations with your team members about building that foundation of effective collaboration and communication, having those courageous conversations about what does working parent mean for you and how can we support you and what can be done within the boundaries of the company? What can we done to support you instead of letting the individual figure things out. So this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you all. I wish I had more time to ask all the questions, but unfortunately I don't. But then again, it's also a taster for you to connect with the different individuals who have shared amazing insights. So thank you all. And until a next Humanize the Workplace, which will be in August, by the way. So I'll take a break, but it will be later in August. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.